Hi, everybody. Thank you for listening to today's podcast. I just wanted to make a quick announcement before I started the actual podcast. When we recorded this show yesterday, it was before the NHL Department of Player Safety handed down the 2-game suspension to Zack Kassian. Therefore, myself and Jim Howard, we talk about what potential suspension he could get or what kind of suspension we do or do not want him to get. But that happened before the NHL made the announcement. Kassian did get suspended for 2 games, as you all know by now, and I'm actually happy with that decision because he gets to play the Flames again as his first game back, so should be exciting to see what happens. Okay, just keep that in mind, and hope you enjoy the rest of the podcast.
Sal Barry and Jim Howard. This is the Puck Junk Podcast.
Hello and welcome to the newest episode of the Puck Junk Hockey Podcast. I'm Sal Barry, and along with me is Jim, not the goalie, Howard.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, Jim Howard. Today we're going to talk about some of the happenings around the NHL over the past couple of days. It's been a pretty exciting week of stuff, or past exciting half week at least. As we look back, I understand you went to a hockey game. You go to a lot of hockey games. You're a season ticket holder.
Yeah, that's true. Went to a fun Whalers night one. We'll get to that a little bit later.
All right, yeah, and been watching a lot of hockey. So, we want to start out with what everybody, this morning I went to school. I bought my breakfast. I sit in the cafeteria area by the windows and just enjoy.
Cool story, bro.
Yeah, and I just sit there and I look at my phone and I was just reading everybody blowing up about the whole Battle of Alberta, Zack Kassian versus Matthew Tkachuk. Not a fight. I don't know what you want to call it, a conflict. When they don't want to call it a...
It's more like it.
I don't know. Is it an ass kicking if the other guy doesn't fight?
All right. Well, let's... before we get into into opinions, let's just kind of roll through the details real fast.
Yes.
Tkachuk seemed to be... I don't want to necessarily say headhunting Kassian the whole game, but he definitely had his eye out for him and was leveling some pretty heavy hits. While some of the hits were definitely okay, they were fine. Some of them were very, very borderline where, head may not have been the initial point of contact, but it was really close to being the first. It was just glancing right through the shoulder and going in for the head. And they were ones that were clearly not meant to just remove the player from the puck, but potentially meant to injure and certainly get on his nerves. And they just kept coming and kept coming and kept coming out throughout the game. And the last hit before Tkachuk got ragdolled, as the term seems to be floating around, while that was not the worst hit, that was finally the straw that broke the camel's back. His Kassian's head was down, as it was a couple of times, because he was engaged with another player near the boards fighting for it. Tkachuk came barreling in, nailed the ever-loving crap out of him, knocked his helmet straight off of his head, and Kassian finally had enough of it, got to Tkachuk, grabbed him by the back of the jersey and threw him to the ice, beat him in the back, and then picked him up and threw him. When he tried to get up, he threw him back down again and kept on swinging before the refs broke it up. And Kassian later on, is thankful that the refs were late getting to him so he could get a few more swings in there.
Mm-hmm.
My opinion, and I'm just throwing this out there, none of this is necessarily great. Tkachuk, was definitely pushing the limits on what was legally and morally the right thing to do in a game. And there is a difference. Kassian had enough. Clearly nothing was going to get called on Tkachuk, so he had to take matters into his own hands. and he just went into beast mode and wailed on him. But the thing is that I don't think that Tkachuk was turtling, as a lot of people said. I think Tkachuk could not defend himself. I think that because he had him by the back, there was really no way he could protect himself in that situation. Tkachuk did not want to drop the gloves, and for that, Kassian called him a particular word later on. I'm not sure if we can say it on the podcast.
Or we could do
I'm not
whatever
sure
we
how many
want.
kids are listening.
I don't know either, but yeah, my girlfriend actually said, you know what? Because she listened to one of our podcasts a few weeks ago, or I think she listened to one where you and I talked about Ronak, and she's like, that's really good. I'm glad you guys keep the swearing to a minimum. It makes it for a general audience, and then everybody could listen to it. And I guess that's okay. I mean, so are G-rated movies, right? I mean, they're for a general audience, and, we don't need to say the F word 20 times, but I mean, I will say, I mean, we could quote it. It's out there. I mean, even, I think it was Sportsnet or whoever I watched the clip on. I mean, Kassian called Tkachuk a pussy, which we'll talk about. I want to talk about that in a little bit. But what I want to say, a couple of just things off the top of my head. I mean, Kassian needs to make that chin strap a little tighter because his helmet doesn't come off; it goes flying. Like
Yes.
I almost wonder if there's like a spring under his helmet that just goes boing and like it just flies off because it flies off like there's nothing on there. I mean, maybe he needs to put a little bit of glue or something. I don't know, some like toupee glue or something.
Glue or something.
Yeah, to make it stick a little better because I mean, his helmet just it doesn't even look like usually like when a player gets hit hard, their helmet will slip forward. You know what I mean? And and actually, that's funny. That's the reason I was doing an article about guys who don't wear helmets. And Rod Langway, who played many years for the Washington Capitals without a helmet, he started his career with a helmet. And he got hit in the eye and he had stitches in his eyelid. And he said when his helmet would slip forward, the rim of the helmet would rub the stitches on his eye, or it was like his eyelid or like his eyebrow, and it was irritating the stitches. So he actually didn't wear a helmet for that reason. And then when it healed, he was just like, oh, I like this better. But he actually started playing with the helmet, but it was just funny that it was like the stitches that made him want to remove the helmet. So a couple notes that I just have down here. I thought that first hit, especially when Kassian's doing that wraparound, and Tkachuk, because you see him, he's like standing. It's almost like he's going, wait for it, wait for it, wait for it. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, boom, right? And I counted 5 strides only because somebody slowed it down. I mean, I hate when people sometimes they'll like slow down the video and you'll be like, well, if you look in these 2 frames, his foot is turned a little bit to the side. And it's like the referee didn't see that because he's not playing it in slow-mo, in high def or whatever. He's seeing it. But that to me looked intentional. That was intentional. Oh, yeah. And that wasn't even like, hey, I'm going to knock this guy off the puck. It's like, I'm going to light this MFer up and, oh, cool, he has the puck. I think the puck was kind of just like a minor detail for Tkachuk at that point to try to keep it legal. But he wasn't thinking, I need to separate this man from the puck. He's like, I need to hit that man as hard as I can, and I'm going to wait till he has the puck, and then I'm going to do it. So Kassian snaps and retaliates. Tkachuk doesn't fight back. I can understand the want for retaliation. I mean, I think most of us have been pushed to that point. Here's the funny thing. The older I get, the more I don't like fighting in hockey. But the more I play hockey, the more I understand the need for fighting in hockey. Now, I'm never played anything relevant. I played a little bit as a kid and I sucked. I quit. I came back as an adult. But I got to tell you something. When some guy just like slashes you, whacks you, whatever, like I had a guy splat me into the boards from behind and he got a penalty. I mean, he got a boarding call, but he knew who I was and he just laid me into the boards. And I mean, okay, he got penalized and that was fine. But if he didn't get penalized, I would have been pissed about that, right? So when it's like,
does he just not like the podcast or what?
No, he just didn't like me. So I saw number 44 and he just laid into me. But the thing is that like I can kind of understand that like if you punch a guy in the mouth, maybe he leaves you alone, right?
Yep.
Like if I had a guy like if I was playing pro hockey and somebody was just gonna punch me or trip me, hook me, slash me, elbow me, spear me, this and that, yeah, I'm gonna haul off. You know what I mean? And like, it's kind of like the bully. Like, I was one of those kids that got picked on. Then actually, when I started standing up to bullies, they left me the fuck alone. Not only that, they didn't just leave me alone. They gave me like a wide berth, because they're like, okay, this, I can't mess with this kid. You know what I
You earned
mean? Like,
some respect.
yeah, exactly. Well, it wasn't even that. It was just that, like, they weren't going to get anything out of me, whether it was, just the ability to pick on me or whatever. So I think it's like the same way in hockey. Like, I even remember some big guy used to pick on me in one of our games, and I slashed him on the ankle, and I said, "That's your warning." And he said, "Well, what are you going to do?" I said, "You want to find out." And he left me alone after that. And this guy was bigger than me, but I wasn't going to let him just, we'd go to the boards for the puck, and it's no check, but he would just, he'd always give me a little extra shot or an elbow or something, and I just got tired of it. So I kind of understand, when the pro fighting crowd says the players need to police themselves. I understand that. I'll admit that the WWE stuff from like the 80s and 90s was kind of embarrassing, and yet I ate that up when I was a kid. I tried watching the bench clearing brawls from the 70s on YouTube, and I get bored of them after 30 seconds. I'm like, man, this is embarrassing.
Mm-hmm.
This is embarrassing. Before they did that like third man in rule and the bench clear rules, when you just have both teams empty to the ice. So, the NHL has made progress in cleaning up a lot of that stuff. Somebody asked, and I'll let you answer this. Somebody, and I don't remember who it is, but they said, if Matthew Tkachuk hit Connor McDavid like that, would that be a suspension?
I don't think you'd be suspended for it. I think maybe the refs might have paid a little bit more attention,
Mm-hmm.
and potentially called him on a charging major or something along, or charging minor, say, and try and calm him down at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Because Chuck is the game he plays is he can score, but he wants to just hammer everything he can on his ice, and that's the way his old man played, and that's the way his brothers played, and that's how he's going to play. And it's gonna take like some serious suspension work to get him to actually stop playing in that style. But as is right now, he leads the league in the most penalties drawn.
Wow.
Yeah, so he's not essentially he's rewarded for a lot of that style of play. He knocks people off of their game. He draws their penalties. They win in the power play just like they did last night.
Right, because Calgary was given a 4-minute power play. Now, Scotty Upshall, former NHLer, and I saw this on Twitter, and I'm like, man, I need to start following Scotty Upshall, because this was just awesome. He said on Twitter, Kassian paid the price already. His team lost a big game on his instigator penalty. Smoked 3 times by MT, and he took it like a man, capital letters. By the third hit, he had enough and let the kid know it's still a man's game. Parentheses, or is it? Sometimes a punch in the face or 5 is what a guy needs. Okay. And I'm just like, yeah, all right, you tell him, bro. I mean,
Mhm.
again, like I say, I as the older I get, the more I'm against fighting, but at the same time, I kind of understand that need to like haul off and hit somebody, especially if they're doing something that's outside what you think is outside of the lines,
Yeah.
outside of what's acceptable. Which brings the question then. So Kassian called Tkachuk a pussy, and I think I would give Kassian 2 games for saying that word, because we can't say that word anymore with in this day and age. But then I would give Tkachuk 2 games for being one, because come on, stick up for yourself, man. If you're gonna pick on somebody bigger than you're gonna go after some guy who's bigger than you, and you're gonna just keep laying them out like that. And again, we kind of say these are borderline. Stand up for yourself, man. Earn some respect. Back in the day, if Bob Probert checked somebody, you didn't like go after Probert like, hey, you can't do that to me, man. You were just like, dude, I'm just glad he checked me and didn't like drop his gloves and fight me. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
break
Like,
your break your jaw.
or like Cam Neely, right? Like Cam Neely would hit a guy, the guy would either fight him or not fight him, but that gave him a lot of room. But they knew that there was consequences if you dropped your gloves against a player like that. So if Tkachuk wants to play that borderline reckless style, that's cool. Just stand up for yourself. It's kind of like putting your money where your mouth is,
True. Would you like to learn a new word?
Yes.
Okay. Today's special word of the day is pusillanimous. That's Pusillanimous. The definition of it is showing the lack of courage or determination. And it was shortened by soldiers, I believe, in World War I or II to pussy. So it's not necessarily a derogatory term involving female genitals. It is literally just a shortening of another older word that's basically saying you're a coward. So that's actually what it is.
I like it.
Sure.
I like
Kids,
it.
maybe don't necessarily use that too much without, just don't be a smart ass when using it.
Don't Google it either, just in case.
Yeah.
But yeah, lack of courage. I like that. That's what it means. So yeah, I guess Kassian was technically correct, although I don't think he was meaning to be correct. I think he meant it more in like the slur or the put down. Well, it's still a put down, but So yeah, so it should be interesting to see. Player safety already said that Tkachuk is not going to be suspended, and Kassian is having a hearing on Monday. As of recording this podcast, we don't know what happened.
What do you think that he's going to get? Think it's going to be a fine? Do you think it's going to be suspension?
So I understand that they're going to play each other again in 3 days, the Oilers and the Flames. So they'll probably make it a 3-game suspension so that they're not playing each other, which I think is a shame. I'd make it a 2-game suspension. Let his first game back be that game against Calgary, man. Talk about letting the bull out of the cage, like
Yeah. When those two have to face against each other, and I want to say I thought the next time they played against each other was January 29th, but maybe I'm wrong. But it's going to be must-see TV.
What say you, official Edmonton Oilers website? 1 game, 2 games. Oh, nope. They're playing Wednesday, January 29th, Calgary and Edmonton, 8 p.m. Mountain Time. So, yep, they got a match coming up. 29th. Oh, they have a bye week. That's why. Okay, so it is their 3rd game away. Hey, we were both right. You said I thought it was at the end of the month, and I'm like, no, stupid. It's 3 games from now. But we were both right. Wow, that is
and maybe Kassian and Chuck were both right too. Any other thoughts on that, or you want to move on?
Let's move on. Ray Shero fired by the Devil. Oh, sorry, not fired. Ray Shero was not fired by the New Jersey Devils. General manager Ray Shero and the New Jersey Devils have mutually agreed to part ways. In other words,
he got fired.
Yeah, pretty much. So Tom Fitzgerald is going to be the interim GM. What's interesting about that is that Fitzgerald is considered one of the top GM candidates in the league. He actually, a couple years ago, he interviewed for the job with the Minnesota Wild before they decided to hire Paul Fenton, who they fired like a year later. So maybe they should have hired Fitzgerald instead. So now Fitzgerald is the interim GM. From what I understand, from Greg Wyshynski for ESPN wrote about that today. Really good article, by the way. Just that, like, this is Fitzgerald's audition because he's considered a good candidate for a GM, and he's going to have like half a season to be their GM. And I guess the question is, what happened here that led to his firing, and what can you do in the latter half of a season as an interim GM? I mean, it's kind of like, oh yeah, we traded Taylor Hall and we have PK Subban and somebody else made a mess and you have half a season to clean it up if you want to keep this job. That's kind of a crummy place to be in versus like getting to be the GM right before the draft. So you could kind of feel like you're doing things right away versus like you're fixing somebody else's problems.
Well, I mean, rewind it a little bit further, and what makes it very curious is the fact that the powers that be with the Devils allowed him to trade away Taylor Hall, and it looked like he was going to essentially go clear house and rebuild in whatever image he deemed necessary, and then all of a sudden they changed their mind. I'm not quite sure, why that is.
I don't know. I can't figure that out because, I mean, Taylor Hall won the Hart a couple years ago. He's a damn good player. They got him for a steal.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I understand, yeah, Edmonton needed defense, but Edmonton can also use Taylor Hall. I mean, come on. The Oilers
Well,
have
you
a
could.
huh?
Yeah, I mean, they could have gotten a lot more out of almost any other team than what they got. I think the rumor at the time was that they were asking Carolina for Justin Falk, and we were like, hell yeah, take Justin Falk. We'll take Taylor Hall. Damn, good God. That I mean, I don't know. They were just aiming low, like they thought Taylor Hall's value in Edmonton was just rock bottom, and everybody knows that's not the case.
That would have made one certain Justin Falk super collector very unhappy, by the way.
True.
Well, Falk got moved again, or got moved anyway. So
And he still might get moved more. Well, the rumor mill always churns, but that's a story for another day.
oh, and I think it's funny that like Tom Fitzgerald is the interim GM, and then Martin Brodeur is like going to advise him, but made it pretty clear that he doesn't want to be a GM because he just wants to stay he wants to stay in New Jersey, raise his
Yeah.
5 kids, and not have to like be a GM who's always on call, who sometimes travels with the team, who has to travel to GM meetings and stuff like that. So
Who, Brodeur?
Brodeur, yeah,
Oh, okay. Yeah,
yeah,
he
yeah, yeah.
wants to stick around and do some more car rental commercials and stuff like that.
I
So,
love those car rental commercials.
aren't they wonderful?
I
He's
love
such a good actor.
he is funny. You know, I watched that commercial, that Martin Brodeur Enterprise Rent a Car commercial, and I watch it and I say, this is so funny, and he has such personality in that commercial, and it's just sad that like NHL players are not mainstream. Like you would never see that commercial anytime outside of a hockey game. You'd only
Yeah.
see it on a hockey game, during a hockey game, and but you could watch any other type of TV show and you'll see a basketball player in a commercial, right? And not even like a Michael Jordan or a Steph Curry, but even just like other basketball players or football players. And it's just like, man, I wish hockey was mainstream enough. I mean, I wish people who didn't know hockey were laughing their ass off at that Martin Brodeur commercial. And they're not. They're never going to see it. So
And that's why hipsters love hockey. I mean, yeah, you can sit there and get your craft beer. You can enjoy the game with your rolled up jeans and your finely done mustache and beard, sitting there with your flannel shirt, whatever, and your trucker hat, and you know you're still cool because the masses don't know what the hell it is you're into.
I thought High Ally was the hipster sport.
That's only in Miami.
Oh, okay.
That's for
Yeah,
Miami hipsters.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
too hot to grow a beard down there.
What's that?
It's too hot to grow a beard down there.
But getting back to the Devils and Shero, so yeah, it's kind of funny that they just let him go mid-season, or fired him, or they mutually parted ways. Don't know. I don't know what to make of Jersey. I mean, what goals can they set? I mean, maybe trying to shed some cap space, maybe trying to move a defenseman or two.
There's kind of this weird echo of Edmonton where if you look at their past seasons and what they did to how they got here and what they did to get here back in 2011-12, they had a high of 102 points. They went all the way up to the Stanley Cup Finals, and then the next season was the lockout. They only had 48 points that year. And Kovalchuk left to go to Russia for a while there. They were still paying for that mistake. We'll get back to Kovalchuk here in a little bit, but yeah, everything seems to go around him. Next season, 78 points. 15-16 season, 84 points. 16-17 season, only 70 points. And then they land Nico Hischier and trade for Taylor Hall in that offseason. The next year, then they actually made it back to the playoffs, scoring 97 getting 97 points on the season, but they got bounced in the first round, only winning one game. And then this past the next year was 72 points. Again, they score really high in the draft, get Jack Hughes. They also trade for PK Subban. They get Wayne Simmons. A few other key players that seemed like really, really great moves on paper. Everybody was lauding that effort, saying, yeah, they're doing what's got to take to get to the top, making all the right moves. And in the end, it fell apart. It really did. Do you play blackjack at all? Have you ever played blackjack?
I have played blackjack. I think, like most Gen Xers, my grandmother taught me how to play cards, and that's who I learned from, my grandma.
Did you ever play in an actual casino, though?
No, 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 no. I've never gone to a casino. I think gambling is a disease, and that's not one I want to partake in.
Fair enough.
Except for like my fantasy hockey, which maybe costs $10 a year to just like play with some friends. That's okay.
Okay.
But like
Well,
going in and playing $50 a hit or whatever,
yeah.
thing.
When you go to a casino, you're actually allowed to take a little card with you that has a chart of all the hands that you can play in blackjack. And that chart will tell you whether you should hit, whether you should stay, whether you should split. And it's all based on what you have in your with your two cards,
Mm-hmm.
and you have to take into account what the dealer is showing you.
Right.
You can play that little card, that system, all night long and lose your pants.
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes the dealer is just hot.
Right.
And that's basically what happened to Shero. He played everything right. He made all the right moves with what he had. And dumb luck, it just didn't go his way, and he's got to leave the table.
Yeah, that's too bad because, like you said, on paper, it sounded like a lot of great moves. I mean, I was excited with who they had. I mean, like you said, Hersher and Hughes and Subban and Hall. I mean, you got the Triple H line right there: Hersher, Hall, and Hughes. Playing on the same line, but still, I mean, and Subban. I mean, maybe just they needed maybe more solid goaltending. I mean, Corey Schneider's in the minors right now. I kind of secretly hope that the Blackhawks will trade like a third-round pick for him or something, and maybe he'll turn it around because I don't think Robin Leonard's coming back. In fact, he said he was kind of insulted, not by the Blackhawks, but by fans thinking that he would take a, quote, hometown discount to stay with Chicago.
Wow.
And I don't want to bring the Blackhawks into this, not yet anyway. No, so I'm just thinking, I mean, Schneider was a good goalie for a while, and I think maybe he's just having kind of that mid-career funk, and maybe he could turn it around, and maybe not with the Devils, though, obviously, because it doesn't seem like they want to keep him.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not quite sure how good their defense is in front of them. I mean, that's a big part of goaltending. That's a big part of why Marty Brodeur got so many rings and so many shutouts there with the Devils, was because they built a system where he didn't actually have to do a whole lot.
No.
And Corey Schneider really did. He had to be the man.
Yeah, I mean, Brodeur was a damn good goalie anyway. But I do think. Yeah. Oh yeah, I'm not. We're not debating that at all. I mean, we're not trying to lessen his accomplishments. But it's kind of like I have the same argument about Ken Dryden. What's the difference between Ken Dryden and Gilles Meloche? Meloche played for the California Golden Seals and the Cleveland Barons and the Minnesota North Stars and the Pittsburgh Penguins. Right? Well, the Penguins at the mid to late 80s before they got hot. But, like, he played on one of the worst teams, and Dryden played on the best team. And he had, tons of Hall of Famers in front of him. So it's easy. If you're a good goalie, it's easy to be a great goalie if you have a great team. Again, not to discredit the accomplishments of Dryden either, whom I would love to meet one day. And by the way, if you have not read some of Dryden's books, I mean, he wrote The Game, which is considered the best hockey book ever written, which I agree. In fact, I loaned that book to a guy on my team who likes to read hockey books. He's actually a goalie. And I brought him the book, and he brought it back the next time he saw me. And I said, "Oh, you've only had it for a week. Are you finished?" And he's like, No, I read the first chapter and it was so good I just decided to buy the book and just have my own copy of it. I mean, that's
Awesome.
how moved he was by that book. And then the other book that he wrote that I think is really great is Game Change: The Life and Death of Steve Montador. I don't know if you've read that.
I've heard of it. It's on my list.
The book starts with an autopsy of Steve Montador's brain. Like
Nice.
literally talks about what the scientist is doing during that autopsy and what they're looking for. I mean, it's and then it intercuts between Montador's career, interviews with people who played with him, played against him, who grew up with him, who knew him, and then also about like the the concussions and the brain injuries and stuff like that. So I mean, the game was kind of like this hockey memoir that wasn't a memoir. It was also like a history of the game, kind of hard to describe, but awesome. And then Game Change like mixed all of these things that you shouldn't think fit together, like a scientific treatise on brain damage and CTE, right? And the history of a player who died who was like a second or third pair defenseman who tragically died, and then and then like a history of like concussions and how to solve the concussion problem. So I mean, dude's a genius. Dude was a
Yeah.
damn good goalie, but if the dude played on the California Golden Seals, he'd maybe just be a damn good author.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, hey,
so
did I ever? I'm sorry to
no, no,
sidetrack you, but did I ever do a review for the book Cold a Long Time?
no.
I need to pull that out and write a review for you because that was another fantastic book.
Is that another one of
Uh,
those romance novels you keep talking about?
it is not, although I guess you could say it's a bit of a chilling book of a real story about one of the Islanders prospects who was working his way up through the farm system, but never could quite make it. Injuries kind of nagged him, and he retired from the game. Was went off to Europe, still a young man, to try and figure out what was he gonna do next? Go be a coach, try and play somewhere else, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And he disappeared, and his family searched for him all over the place, couldn't find him. Had private detectives searching for him, things like that. And 25, 30 years later, he's discovered at the bottom of a glacier. I
Whoa.
won't spoil the rest, but it is an amazing story.
What was the player's name?
I have to look it up.
When did this happen?
This happened in the late 80s. He was an
Duncan
Islanders
McPherson.
prospect. Might be.
Duncan McPherson.
Yeah,
Yeah, he went
I think so.
missing. He went
Hmm.
missing. Yeah, I remember reading about that. That's just right around the time I got into hockey. So I remember reading about that in the hockey news. And I'm like, whoa, this dude just disappeared. I mean, this is before GPS and
Hmm.
satellite tracking and all this
Cell
stuff now.
phones.
Yeah, I
Hmm.
know, right? So yeah, Duncan McPherson. I do recall that. So getting back to all roads leading to Ilya Kovalchuk,
Whom
he
I
scored.
blame for the devil's woes, but go ahead.
So Ilya Kovalchuk, who's still getting paid by the Kings to play for the Canadiens, making league minimum, but whatevs, had a couple of assists before Saturday night. Finally got his goal. You want to tell us about it?
Yeah, it was a pretty good goal. Before the goal, I think he had a breakaway that he completely missed on. But come overtime, he got to be the star champ there. Had a good turnover in their zone, and he skated up the ice with it. Uh, he was by himself and slowed down a little bit of fast deke work while just looking around, and he could not find anybody else, any of his other teammates in during overtime to pass to, and just finally took a fling of the puck and got it right in the goal for the game winner. Uh, all the Canadians fans just erupted, and he was a hero again. Uh, he made it look easy, like he does so many times. Um, I just it was looks like there was no effort whatsoever, and he was almost surprised that that puck went in the goal. But as it is, it was a good goal.
Well, I mean, I watched that and the overtime goal, the 3-on-3 goal, and he had the defender thinking he might pass. Like,
Mm,
you know, you as a defender, you break up the pass, trust that your goalie will stop the goal. But the goalie was thinking he's going to pass. The defender was thinking, oh, he's going to pass. And so they were more intent on thinking that he was going to pass to the other man. And Kovalchuk made it look like, I'm going to pass the puck to you. And then he shoots it. So whether it was trickery or whether he was going to, whether he was going to shoot it all along or whether he was thinking pass, okay, screw it, I'm just going to shoot it. I don't know. I mean, I didn't see any post game interviews. I don't think I would tell that. Like
I would say it was the latter rather than the former, because if he had actually pulled that shot off without looking at the goal whatsoever, that would have been magnificent.
Mm-hmm.
But he did at the last second turn and just look at his corner and take it. So the goalie at least knew that he was looking in his direction.
Yeah, the goal's a goal. It's a good goal. So he's got that monkey off his back. He got his first goal of the season in January, but that's okay.
Hey, would you like to know some more Kovalchuk fun?
Sure.
Okay. Well, Kovalchuk, since we also had a goalie goal.
Oh, wait, hold on. We've got to talk about Whalers night first.
Oh, okay, all right.
Oh, why are you avoiding this? You're like, Jim goes to Whalers night and he sends me video. He's at a game and he's like shooting video of the Zamboni, which it was kind of funny because they projected the big Whalers logo at center ice. Like when they weren't skating around, they'd always project this big Whalers logo over the Hurricanes logo. They got the Zambonis going around. They're playing 80s music. The Carolina Hurricanes. So they had their Whalers night on Saturday, January 11th. They beat the LA Kings 2-0. James Reimer gets a shutout. Second shutout in 2 nights for the Hurricanes because Mrazek got one, I guess, the night before. Wow, that's pretty awesome. So what I want to know, because I got to tell you, man, when you sent me that video, I'm like, oh no, it's Whalers night tonight. I would have watched this game, but I was watching the Blackhawks and they got a win against the Ducks. But I tuned in, I watched the third period or most of the third period, when you sent me that video from intermission. And wow, I mean, that was intense and that was a win. I mean, you have to have a little luck on your side, and the Hurricanes got lucky a little bit when the puck hit the post, but you need to have that kind of luck. I mean, also, a Kings player fanned on an opportunity that came right to them to the goalie's right towards, the closing moments, but then the goalie also came up big, which is what you also need. You need like all of these things in place. So I think and then they got an empty net goal, and I think so for a Saturday night home game, throwback night, they get a shutout, and then they do a storm surge, even though they're in Whaler garb, so I don't know if that makes sense, to do a storm surge. Wow, what a cool game. I mean, that looked like a lot of fun. The audience was so into it. Are people that psyched about going to Hurricanes games, like just normally, or like even during the playoffs? That there was such energy at that game.
When it's a close game, Canes are winning. Yeah, there's a lot of energy. And if it's a close game, the Canes are only like 1 behind, but they're clearly like giving it everything. Yep, there's a lot of energy in that building. That is for sure. The Whalers night thing, we had it last season as well, and that was another just huge success. Everybody looked at this just being like a money grab by Tom Dundon, but it's clear that everybody really enjoyed it because it just kind of gives a little bit of freshness. You got red and black and silver all over the place around here. So to have just like one night where everything just goes green, it throws a monkey wrench in everything, and everybody thinks it's St. Patty's Day.
Yeah, that's why I asked about the green beer, and you didn't get it. You're like, no,
I got it. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
No, they don't have any green beer right now, unfortunately. So we just have our quality craft beer.
So does this dispel the myth that a quote unquote non-traditional hockey market can't be hockey fans? Because those look like hockey fans to me, and I can't think they're all transplants from New York.
There are a lot of transplants. Don't get me wrong. You walk through the parking lot, and you will see a lot of Hurricane season ticket holder stickers right next to a Pittsburgh Penguin sticker or a Buffalo Sabre sticker or a Ranger sticker. There's a lot of dual fans down
Mm.
here. They're still rooting for their team when their team comes to town, but 78 to 80 games out of the year, they're rooting for the Canes.
Right,
And there's
right,
not that many people transferring here from LA.
right. I wonder. I mean, was everybody just that psyched about it the whole time? Must have been a sellout, right, or close to it.
Yeah, it was a sellout. They do special merchandising. They do a special pack of cards, team cards, for
Did you
Whalers
get
Night.
me one?
Yes, I got you one.
Thank you, as they used to say at the Thrashers games. You go no, which actually, the
At the 1
Thrashers
minute mark.
at the 1 minute mark, people would say how much time is left, and at they'd say it at like 1:03, and then the announcer would go 1 minute remaining in the period, and everybody would go thank you. But then this got adapted by the Chicago Wolves because they were the Thrashers affiliate for a long time. So
Oh,
people
okay.
will still say so the Wolves have this Thrashers uh tradition they've kept
Mhm.
alive longer than the team that had that tradition, which is funny to explain that to people, that like no, this is when the Chicago Wolves used to be affiliated with the Winnipeg Jets when they were the Atlanta Thrashers. No, not those Winnipeg Jets. Yeah, it's just can of
Mhm.
worms, right?
Yeah.
um okay, cool. Cards, I'm excited, man.
Yep. Cards, posters, autograph pucks. There's only 250 of those, and they got gobbled up really
Oh, I'm
fast. I,
sure, I'm
I
sure.
tried to get in line for that, and I didn't even make it around the corner. But yeah, like the I mean, it was down the concourse and everything. But yeah, I mean, people love it. People have a lot of fun. It's great. It's almost like for hockey for us anyway. It's almost like a holiday, I guess you could say.
Yeah, I mean, to know your roots, I guess. Two things I want to know though is why don't the Hurricanes just go? If they're going to go '80s night, they need to go all in and do the Cooper all pants. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh yes.
Just go
I'm not.
all
Is that
in.
company even still around to make Cooperalls?
I don't know what happened to Cooper. I know a lot of companies. I know like got bought out by other companies and stuff like that. I mean, I used to have a Cooper helmet when I was a kid, and I
Mhm.
gotta admit, like some people talk about how great a Jofa helmet is, but in like the late '80s, early like the '80s and '90s, like if you were wearing a helmet, it was either a Jofa or a Cooper, or maybe it was like some weird one-off kind of helmet that you'd see from time to time. But like the Cooper was like the mainstream helmet. Like when I got
Mhm.
a helmet as a kid, I wanted a Cooper helmet because that's what the Blackhawks wore. That's what all the guys who wore helmets mainly wore. I mean, you had your exceptions, like I said, your Jofa helmets here and there,
Mhm.
like McSorley and Gretzky and Curry. A lot of guys on the same team would tend to wear like Jofas. Um, but okay, so that was the one thing, and the other thing I wonder is Whalers Night like a big middle finger to the fans of Hartford?
Absolutely not. I can say that with full assurance. We have uh, made for one thing, like we always invite some of the old whalers to come down for the
Mm-hmm.
game. So we had ceremonial puck drop with one of the whalers that night, and we had the team captain, one of the old team captains, for last year as well. I don't know if it's going to be a middle finger to anybody. I guess it would be more of a middle finger to Boston Bruins fans, just like, hey, remember that kid you kept on beating up? Well, he's still alive over here.
Right. Doing fine over here.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, a lot of that beating up had to do with the fact that the Whalers, all the teams that entered the WHA from the NHL, I mean, they lost a lot of their good players when there was the merger because you had guys go back to the teams that held their rights, and then you
Hmm.
even had teams kind of do some kind of not so nice things as far as like you had NHL teams like selecting players or like saying, oh, this player, we have his rights, but they would bring that up after the fact. or like they just basically strong arm him and say, yeah, we know this guy played for you for many years in the WHA, and if you want to keep him, it's going to cost you your first round pick. So, I mean, these teams didn't really have a chance to compete. The Oilers did because they were able to hang on to Gretzky.
Yeah.
And that was because Gretzky didn't actually sign a WHA contract. He signed a personal services contract with the owner of the Indianapolis Racers, who sold that contract to Peter Pocklington, the owner of the Edmonton Oilers. So it wasn't actually a league contract. And also that was one of the sticking points. Like they were like, no, you're not getting Gretzky, or we're not, then we're not going to approve this merger, because they had that was the one thing the WHA had that the NHL wanted more than anything. Well, probably that, and not the escalating salaries that happened and all the other problems that happened. But anyway, well, that's good that that the night was successful, that it was fun. Another thing that happened earlier in that day, Jeremy Roenick bared his soul for 45 seconds, put a video out there online.
He looked very sad. He looked
short,
very morose.
Sweet, very morose. It was short, sweet, to the point. I'm going to read what our colleague Tim Parrish said. Glad JR put this out there, but wish it wasn't necessary. In this cancer culture world of participation trophies and fragile egos that we live in, this is all too common anymore. Hope he makes it back to the air soon. And I agree with Tim. I don't know if it wasn't necessary. I think it was necessary.
Oh, yeah.
But I don't think, and Tim, I'm not trying to talk behind your back while you're busy. Oh, what are you doing today? You're putting up window treatments. They bought some blinds and shades and stuff that had to get put up because their windows were just not covered. So
you told me they were just terrible and ugly. I can't imagine, but you're just not a fan of that window treatment, Sal. I know it.
Oh yeah. Don't like the Venetian. Don't like the vertical blinds. They're tacky. They're so 80s.
Do you know how to make a Venetian blind?
I do not.
You poke them in the eye.
Ouch. I should have saw that coming. But
yeah, so should Kassian.
Huh?
So should Kassian.
But anyway, so yeah, I think we all agreed that Roenick went a little out of line. He apologized, and I just hope we could just keep it at that. I don't know if they need to ever I don't know. Can he and Catherine Tappan and Patrick Sharp sit at the same desk together without it being weird?
Eventually, I imagine it'll be water under the bridge, and we'll have moved on, and we'll have more interesting things that they'll have to talk about. So
yeah,
I imagine that any wounds will heal, and they seem to be pretty buddy with one another. Is what it sounds like. So I imagine they'll that gang will get back together soon enough. I imagine it all comes down to how NBC feels.
Yeah, and hopefully hopefully Roenick's back in time for the All-Star game, because I won't be watching the game for the jerseys.
Ugh.
Yeah, I don't know. That kind of the jerseys right now. Not to get onto this because I wanted to do an All-Star show towards closer to the All-Star game, but those jerseys, remember a couple years ago, maybe it was 6 or 7 years ago, when they did those jerseys that had the bright neon green?
Oh yeah.
And we thought, oh, what an eyesore, right?
Mm-hmm.
Those look nice compared to these. These are just kind of okay.
Yeah, they're just they're bland and boring. Was it the ones that in San Jose, I think, where they did gave a pretty all black treatment, but they were made out of recycled material or something like that a couple of years ago?
Yeah, I remember that. I like
those. Look pretty good. I like those. Yeah.
Those are cool. I mean, those are monochromatic, and I thought they looked good. And I understand, it's kind of funny. The All-Star game is just really like a rat hockey game. Later on tonight, you know what rat hockey means? Okay. No. Okay. Sorry. So
rat. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Rat,
Yeah.
RAT. Basically,
Yes.
It's pickup hockey, right?
Yeah.
So I run a pickup game once a week, and I tell my guys white jerseys and dark jerseys. I don't want to say white jerseys and black jerseys because not everybody owns a black jersey, but everybody should own a white jersey and everybody should own a dark jersey. But basically, the NHL just looks like a rat hockey game. We're like, well, we're all wearing white jerseys, but they have different logos on them, kind of like when I run my rat hockey game. This side is all wearing white jerseys, but I got my Salmon Kings jersey on. Shelly's got her Austin Ice Bats jersey on, and another friend has a jersey from the team that he plays on, and like everybody has their own white jersey, and we just kind of see, all right, we're all on the team with the white jerseys, but you'll have 20 people and maybe none of them are wearing matching logos, kind of like the All-Star game.
Well, next time you can always suggest to play shirts versus skins.
Yeah, that would suck on the ice, but I think they need to go back to the much maligned All-Star jerseys from the 80s that were like black, white, and orange. They used to be referred to as Halloween costumes because actually for a while the dark ones were orange, and then later they made the base color black instead of orange. So, I mean, you did look like a pumpkin when you were in like this orange jersey.
Yeah. I liked it a few years ago when they actually had the players picking the teams before the game.
Yeah,
that was
like
so
that.
wonderful.
That was fun.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, the NHL, at least they're trying some fun things. I think the 3-on-3 format is working really good.
Yeah.
I think it's more fun. Maybe it'd be fun to do 3-on-3s. Maybe it'd be fun to make the goalies the captains and have them pick the teams.
That could be cool too, actually.
Because the goalies are always...
They pick defensive men all first.
So what? They don't want to get lit up for 11 goals. Who the hell wants to allow 10 goals in a 10-minute period, right? Or a 20-minute half of a game, right?
Yeah.
Oh, speaking of goalies, though, good segue, Jim. How did you know?
I have no idea.
We got to talk about Pekka Rinne. Scores an empty net goal against the Blackhawks in a 5-2 win on Thursday, January 9th. So this is the 11th goalie in NHL history to score a goal. And that doesn't necessarily mean shoot the puck all the way down. It could be an own goal by the other team where the goalie got credited with the goal, or it could be the shoot the puck down the ice and it goes into the goal. That's what Rinne did. Those goalie goals are always more exciting because they're instantaneous. Like, he's going for it. It's going. Is it? It is. And then there's like that instantaneous versus like, somebody, okay, who was the last one to touch the puck? I think they're going to give that one to Cam Ward. You know what I mean? Like, let's check the tape.
It's fun to have 200 feet of anticipation.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it builds up, right?
Yeah.
What I was going to say, though, is like, but this cannot be more emblematic of the season that the Blackhawks are having. I mean, so this is like, like those "Yo Mama So Fat" jokes. Okay, so play along with me here. This is going to be like one of those "Your hockey team's so bad" jokes. So I'm going to be like, "Your hockey team's so bad."
How bad is it?
Your hockey team's so bad that the other team's goalie is scoring on your team. Right? I mean, you cannot. I mean, that is a low point. One of my teammates was at that game, and I looked at him and I said, "Dude, you saw history get made." And he goes, "That's not the history I want to see." And then somebody's like, "What was the fan reaction like?" And he's like, "Oh man, everybody was booing. Like, nobody was like, wow, this is pretty cool. This has only really happened like, 13 times in one way or another in 125 years or 100 years of NHL history." So like, yeah, he said that like the fans were really pissed about it and booing. And I'm thinking back to my days of going to Chicago when I would go to games at Chicago Stadium. See, now fans don't throw things on the ice. That's what I was waiting for after Pekka Rinne scored the goal. I was waiting for the ice to fill with debris. That doesn't happen anymore for two reasons. Or three reasons. One, I think the fans are a little more respectful of that. Two, you will get kicked out. I mean, you would get kicked out anyway, but when you had 3,000 people throwing paper beer cups on the ice at the same time, which one do you throw out, right? And especially
and beer's expensive now.
No, empty cups, the empty beer cups, right?
Well, the full ones travel further from the 300 section.
Well, first, what you do is you dump it out on the people in front of you. So what would happen was Chicago Stadium, like you had your mezzanine, and then it was like a layer cake, or like a wedding cake where it went up, right? Like you had the first balcony that was stacked on the mezzanine, because you'd have your box seats, which were 30 rows. Then you'd have 6 seats of mezzanine, and then the other 30 or 40 seats in the mezzanine were covered by the first balcony. And then the first balcony was covered by the second balcony. So it just like went straight up. So if you were on the second balcony, you could throw a paper cup and hit center ice. Or if you were in the first or second balcony and you poured your beer out, you would splash all the people in the mezzanine who are rows 5 and forward. We were in row 6, so we never got splashed by beer unless it bounced off of somebody and hit one of us. Then we just like put our hands up to protect ourselves, kind of like in a Blue Man show. You know, Blue Man Group show where you put up the poncho. It'd be like, okay, empty net goal, looking up, waiting for the beer to come raining down, and then people would throw their cups on the ice. So that's what would have happened in the old Chicago Stadium days. And then the next day, Mike Keenan would have bag skated them for 3 hours, kind of like that scene in Miracle, you know.
Chicago is a town that suffers no fools having their day. If you go to a Wrigley Field and the visiting team hits a home run, that ball ain't staying in the stands. It's getting thrown right back on the field.
Yeah. They don't want that. They don't care who you are. Anyway, the first goalie, just a little trivia here. First goalie was Billy Smith in 1979. He was credited with the goal, but did not shoot it. Rob Ramage scored an own goal against his net for the Colorado Rockies. So I say first goalie to score a goal, or credited with scoring a goal, Billy Smith. But the second goalie to score a goal, and the first one to actually do the deed of shooting the puck down the ice, was Ron Hextall, one of the best puck handling goalies of his time.
Makes sense.
Probably one of the first really good puck handling goalies. Shot the puck down the ice into an empty net. And then, of course, Carolina, we've got to talk about your team, because why not, was on both the giving end and the receiving end of the goalie goals.
Yes. Let's see. I think I was there for both. If I remember the second one. The first one was a goal that was credited to Cam Ward, and it was against the Thrashers, I believe.
Nope, Devils.
No, it was Devils?
Yeah, but I know who you're thinking of. It was the Devils in 2011. It was during the 11-12 season. Okay. And our buddy, Buttercup, Kovalchuk. Why do you build me up, Kovalchuk, just to let me down?
Because all roads lead to Kovalchuk. He lost his footing on the ice while trying to set up with the man advantage, and the puck skittered away from his stick and went the opposite direction down the ice, went right in the goal. And initially they credited it to one of the Carolina skaters, but when they went back and looked by the end of the game, they realized that Cam Ward was the last player to touch the puck. And so he was accredited for having a goal. And they told him later on in the locker room. He was like, "Oh, that's neat."
Yeah, I mean, it was like they told him after the fact.
So it wasn't like he got to experience the
getting announced on the ice and, then getting to race towards your bench so you can fist bump everybody. He didn't get that fun.
Right. And then what about the other one? I mean, and I got the details here. I'm not trying to test your memory, but you said you were at the other one, so that was when Martin Brodeur was credited with the goal against the Hurricanes. That was in 2013 during the 12-13 season. Well, I guess that was the 13 season because that was a lockout year.
I think that was...
It was Jordan Staal.
Yeah, it was Jordan Staal, I believe, lost it, and it pinballed off of the boards. I mean, there was just... you couldn't do this on purpose. But it was just a dumb angle that hit that, and there was no stopping that puck going all the way down the ice and going in.
Although Dan Ellis did think about it because he was going to the bench for the extra attacker, and then it's hard to get a good angle because I tried watching that on YouTube. But it's funny because I see like his skates, you see like his feet at the top of the screen because he's like changing direction and he's coming back. But then you see him going from striding to gliding when he realizes that there's no way he's going to get to it. And
it was moving pretty quick.
Yeah. And I mean, the goalie's focused on
getting to the bench as fast as they can. And usually they're looking for the player on the other team. And if they see a player on the other team coming back, they hurry back, right?
Mm-hmm.
But like this was the puck. So maybe he's like, all right, we got control. We're in deep. I'm beelining for the bench. Oh no, what's happening? And he like turns around. And it's funny because it's not actually an empty net goal because Ellis never left the ice. So he's still, it's still counted against him as a goal. And you can actually say that Marty Brodeur scored a goal against another goalie. So Brodeur scored an empty net goal. He scored a goal that he was credited with in that manner, but then he also scored a goal that he was credited with in that manner, but against another goalie. So I guess that makes him the ultimate. I don't know if that makes him more uber, because Hextall fired it down twice and scored both times. I mean, both goals that he has were goals that he shot down the ice. Brodeur only shot one down the ice, but then he also is noted as having a goal against a goalie, which I mean, I know it's not like he beat him 1-on-1, but it was still pretty funny.
Yeah, I mean, again, Brodeur was such an amazing player that, and such a good puck handler that he made the league put in that stupid trapezoid, which I think should be gone now because he's gone.
Okay, the Brodeur rule, yeah.
Yeah, I would love to see goalies have the ability to play the puck more freely. I think that would help with making the game exciting again.
I think
not that it's not exciting now, but
I think goalies made more mistakes before
that's
the trapezoid.
exciting.
They were more likely to be like, oh, here's the puck. I'm going to go stop it from coming around the corner and pass it out. And it would like take a bad hop and go right to their opponent and they would just fire it in, So it definitely curtails their ability to make mistakes. I mean, if they're limited to where they can shoot the puck from or handle the puck from. Yeah, I mean, they could remove it. I don't really think about it that much.
We don't because we're just used to it now. But when you talk about Brodeur and the effect that he had on the league, you can't help but bring that up, and then you have to think about it.
No, yeah, that's true. So so our two wishes then are for the league to remove the trapezoid and for more Enterprise Rent-A-Car commercials starring Marty Brodeur, who we all know is the greatest St. Louis Blues goalie in St. Louis Blues history.
Yeah, I mean, you can, when it comes to St. Louis Blues, you have to like put him right next to Wayne Gretzky's time in the Blue Note as well.
Oh my God,
those
yes.
two are inseparable from those uniforms.
Oh my God, you are so right. I mean, we could do like an all-star team of like Blues players that were like either just visiting for 5 minutes or at the end of their career. I mean, Glenn Hall played admirably for the Blues their first 3 years. When he was at the end of his career, but he was a damn good goalie. I mean, he got him in the finals. One of those expansion teams was going to make the finals. But yeah, you're right. Gretzky and Brodeur. How about that? Two of the greatest St. Louis Blues of all time. Who would have thunk it? I think I'm out of stuff to talk about. I'm at the end of my notes here. Anything else you want to add before we call it a wrap?
I think we've covered just about all the major news of the week here.
All right, then I'm just going to close this out by saying, thank you for listening as always. If you like this podcast, please tell your friends that there's this hockey podcast. Sometimes we talk straight up hockey. Sometimes we talk hockey cards. Sometimes we talk a little bit of both. We're fans just like you. Also, be sure to like and subscribe. And until next time, thank you for listening to the Puck Junk Hockey Podcast.
For more hockey goodness, follow us on Twitter @PuckJunk.